There are nights I still wake up to the sound of rain against my window, and for a split second, I imagine his arms around me again, warm, steady, and safe. Then reality rushes in like a cold wind, reminding me that the arms I once trusted were the same ones that held a secret capable of breaking me. Before I begin, I want to appreciate every single person who has supported this channel. To all my loyal subscribers, thank you from the depths of my heart. And to all the new viewers and those who have not yet subscribed, welcome. I truly cannot wait for you to hit that subscribe button because your support is the fuel that keeps this channel alive. Please share your thoughts in the comments after watching, because your engagement means everything to me and helps this community grow. Now, let us go back to where it all began. My name is Emily Harper, and for the longest time, I thought I had the kind of marriage others prayed for. I met Daniel 13 years ago at a small art gallery in Raleigh, North Carolina. He was tall, with the kind of smile that made strangers feel seen. I was an interior designer then, barely 22, full of dreams and convinced that love could solve anything. Daniel was a civil engineer, grounded, gentle, and endlessly patient. Our love grew fast, but not recklessly. We spent nights talking about our future, the house we would build, the children we would raise, the life we would share. When he proposed, it was under a silver sky by the lake behind his parents' cabin. I remember how the world stood still that day, how I believed that nothing could ever go wrong with us. For years, it truly seemed that way. We had a home filled with laughter and sunlight. We took morning jogs together, shared coffee before work, and spent weekends redecorating rooms for fun. Friends called us the perfect couple. But I have learned that perfection can sometimes be the most dangerous illusion. Because when you believe in it too much, you stop looking for the cracks forming beneath the surface. The first crack appeared on an ordinary Tuesday. Daniel came home later than usual. He said there was a project deadline that kept him at the office. I believed him. Why wouldn't I? He looked tired, smelled faintly of concrete dust and cologne, and kissed me softly before heading for the shower. But that night, as I collected his clothes from the floor, I noticed a faint scent that was not mine. It was floral, subtle, and strangely expensive, the kind that lingered too long to ignore. I told myself it must have come from a coworker's perfume. I did not want to sound paranoid. Over the following weeks, those late nights became frequent. He started guarding his phone with a kind of quiet anxiety, keeping it face down or locked in his jacket pocket. Once, when I playfully reached for it, he laughed too quickly and changed the subject. I tried to convince myself that every couple goes through phases like this. I reminded myself that Daniel loved me, that people get tired, distracted, stressed. But deep down, a quiet unease began to settle inside me, the kind that does not shout but whispers until it becomes impossible to ignore. Then came the night of the dinner. He told me his company was hosting a small client event at a downtown restaurant. He said it would be boring, just contracts and numbers, nothing I would enjoy. I smiled, pretended not to care, and told him to have fun. But when he left, something inside me resisted the peace I tried to fake. The silence in our house that evening was too loud, the ticking clock too slow. I poured myself a glass of wine, turned on the television, and tried to distract myself with a movie I could not focus on. My phone buzzed, a message from my best friend, Chloe, asking if Daniel would be at the networking dinner near her firm's office. I froze. That was not the same restaurant Daniel had mentioned earlier. My chest tightened. Still, I laughed it off and told her he was probably at a different event. But later that night, while scrolling through social media, I stumbled upon a tagged photo from a corporate account. It was from the very restaurant Chloe had mentioned, and there he was. Daniel, my husband, smiling, holding a glass of wine, seated beside a woman I did not recognize. Her hand rested casually on his shoulder. For a moment, the world blurred. My heartbeat echoed in my ears. I clicked on her profile. Her name was Alyssa James, a marketing consultant who, according to her posts, had been working closely with Daniel's firm for months. I remembered her name faintly from one of his stories, something about a new client manager who was sharp and full of ideas. I told myself I would confront him when he returned, but when the front door finally opened around midnight, I did not. I just watched him quietly as he slipped off his shoes and loosened his tie. He looked happy, not drunk, not guilty, just content. And that made it worse. Because it meant that whatever was happening was not an accident. It was intentional. He kissed my forehead and told me the dinner went well. I smiled and nodded, but in my chest, something small and fragile began to crack apart. That night, I lay beside him, staring into the dark, pretending to sleep while tears silently slid across my face. I did not know how to ask the questions forming in my mind. I did not know how to face the truth I was beginning to fear. But I knew one thing: our perfect picture had started to fade, and I was about to learn just how much of our life had been painted over with lies. The morning after that dinner felt heavier than any morning I could remember. The sunlight seemed duller, the air colder. Daniel moved around the kitchen as though everything was normal. He hummed under his breath while making coffee, asked about my day, and kissed me goodbye before heading to work. I stood there, frozen by the contrast between his calmness and the storm building inside me. I had never been the type to snoop, but that day I became someone I did not recognize. When I cleaned the kitchen, I found his jacket draped over the chair. Inside the pocket was a small receipt from the restaurant he had gone to: 2 entrees, 1 dessert, and a bottle of the same wine he used to buy for our anniversaries. It was dated the night before, with a handwritten note at the bottom that read, "Perfect evening. Until next time." I stared at those words for a long time. They looked innocent enough, but I felt their weight like a stone pressed against my chest. I folded the receipt and slipped it into a drawer, unsure of what to do. I still could not bring myself to accuse him without proof. I needed to be sure, though part of me already was. That afternoon, I met my best friend, Chloe, for coffee. She noticed the restlessness in my eyes and asked what was wrong. I told her about the receipt, about the photo I had seen. Her face softened with pity and concern. She advised me to talk to Daniel directly, but I could not. I was not ready to hear the truth spoken aloud. Sometimes silence feels safer than confirmation. The following week, Daniel's patterns grew more suspicious. He started leaving early and coming home late, often claiming he had unexpected meetings. When I asked for details, he grew vague, almost irritated. I wanted to believe that it was just work pressure, but every small inconsistency added another crack to the wall of trust between us. One Friday evening, after hours of pacing, I decided I needed to know. I took my car and drove toward his office, parking a short distance away. Around 8 o'clock, I saw him exit the building, not alone but with Alyssa. They laughed together as they crossed the parking lot, their shoulders brushing. She touched his arm lightly as they walked to her car. The gesture was casual, but it broke something inside me that could not be repaired. I stayed in the car, trembling, watching them until they drove away. The logical part of me wanted to follow, but the emotional part, the part that still loved him, could not bear to see any more. I went home instead, sat in the dark living room, and waited for him. When he finally returned after midnight, he looked tired but calm. He greeted me with a smile and a kiss on the forehead. I almost laughed. How easy it was for him to pretend. 4 days afterward, I carried the truth like a secret disease. It consumed my thoughts but never left my lips. I functioned on autopilot, going to work, making dinner, smiling when necessary. But inside, I was hollow. My nights were sleepless. Every time Daniel reached for me, I stiffened, unsure how to respond. The breaking point came 2 weeks later. I was folding laundry when his phone, which he had left on the bed, vibrated with a message. I tried to look away, but the preview flashed across the screen before I could stop myself. It was from Alyssa. "Last night was everything. I cannot stop thinking about you." The room spun. I sat down, phone in hand, and stared at the message until my vision blurred. My chest hurt so deeply I thought I might faint. I waited until he came home, then placed the phone on the table between us. He saw it instantly. His eyes widened, and for a second, his mask slipped. He started to speak, but I raised my hand to stop him. I did not want to hear excuses or half-truths. The silence between us said more than words ever could. I could see guilt in his eyes, but also something worse: resignation. as if part of him had already accepted the loss of what we once had. He admitted that it had started months ago. At first, he said, it was just friendship, late-night work discussions, shared coffee breaks. Then it became something more. He said he had not meant for it to happen, but those words meant nothing. You do not fall by accident into betrayal. You walk there, one step at a time. I listened without interrupting, my hands trembling in my lap. When he finished, I asked him if he loved her. His hesitation was all the answer I needed. That night, I packed a small bag and left. I did not know where I was going, only that I could not stay. I drove until the city lights faded behind me and the open road stretched out before me. The sound of my own breathing was loud in the silence of the car. I stayed with Chloe for a few days, pretending to be strong. But every time I closed my eyes, I saw them together, the smiles, the laughter, the quiet betrayal that had been happening behind my back. In the weeks that followed, Daniel called often. He said he was sorry, that it was a mistake, that he wanted to fix things. But how do you fix something that has been burned from the inside out? I ignored most of his calls, not out of anger, but because I did not know who I was anymore without him. The hardest part was realizing that love and betrayal can coexist. You can hate what someone did and still ache for their presence. I missed the sound of his voice, the comfort of his touch, even as I despised the memory of his lies. Sometimes, healing does not begin with forgiveness. It begins with the painful acceptance that some chapters end without closure. And as much as I tried to move on, part of me knew that the story between Daniel and me was not truly over. Not yet. There is a moment in every heartbreak when silence becomes louder than the pain itself. For me, that moment came 3 months after I left Daniel. I had stopped counting the days. The ache had dulled into something quieter but heavier, a constant reminder that I had survived something I once thought would destroy me. I had rented a small apartment near the edge of town. It was modest, a single bedroom with bare walls and an old wooden desk by the window. But it was mine. I started waking up early again, brewing my own coffee, taking long walks before work. There was a strange peace in the routine, even in the loneliness. For weeks, I avoided anything that reminded me of him. I muted his number, deleted old photos, even stopped visiting the grocery store we used to go to together. But grief has its own way of finding you. Sometimes, in the quietest moments, it whispers memories you did not invite. I would hear a song on the radio, smell his cologne on someone passing by, or see a couple laughing in a restaurant window, and it would hit me all over again. Healing was not a straight line. There were days I felt strong, and others when I cried without warning. But little by little, I began to rediscover parts of myself I had forgotten. I read books I used to love, painted again, and started journaling. In those pages, I poured out everything, the anger, the regret, the disbelief. Somewhere in between the pain, I found pieces of clarity. One evening, as I sat by the window watching the sunset, my phone rang. It was Daniel. I almost ignored it, but curiosity got the better of me. His voice was softer than I remembered, almost fragile. He told me he had ended things with Alyssa weeks ago. He said he had been going to therapy, trying to understand why he had done what he did. He wanted to meet and talk. Part of me wanted to say no, but closure is a tricky thing. Sometimes you chase it even when you know it might hurt. So I agreed. We met at a small cafe downtown, one we used to visit in our early years together. The air was thick with unspoken memories. He looked older, wearier, as if the weight of his choices had finally settled on him. When our eyes met, I did not see the man who had betrayed me. I saw the man I had once loved, and for the first time, I did not feel anger. I just felt tired. He apologized again, not in the rushed, defensive way he had before, but with the quiet honesty of someone who had finally faced himself. I listened, but I did not interrupt. When he finished, I told him something I had only recently learned to believe, that forgiveness does not always mean reconciliation. I told him I forgave him, not for his sake, but for mine. Holding on to the pain had kept me connected to him in all the wrong ways. I needed to let it go to truly move forward. He nodded, tears in his eyes, and for a moment, we sat in silence. It was not the silence of tension anymore. It was the silence of release. When I left the cafe that evening, the sky was painted with shades of gold and violet. I realized that life rarely gives us the endings we expect. Sometimes, it gives us something better, the strength to write our own. Now, when people ask if I would ever love again, I tell them the truth. Yes, I will. But differently. More carefully. Not from fear, but from wisdom. Love, after betrayal, becomes something deeper, a choice rather than a dependency. They say eyes are windows to the soul. But I learned they are also mirrors, showing you the part of yourself you have been ignoring. Because when I looked into mine after everything fell apart, I did not see the broken woman I feared I had become. I saw someone who survived, who refused to let betrayal define her. And that, perhaps, is what love was always meant to teach us. Thank you so much for watching. If this story touched your heart in any way, please do not leave without giving this video a thumbs up. Your engagement keeps this channel alive and helps these stories reach others who may need them. And before you go, I want to leave you with a question. Have you ever loved someone so deeply that even after they broke your heart, a part of you still wished you could go back, just to feel that love one more time? Share your thoughts in the comments. I will be reading every single one.